outnumbered overtime. OT, baby. Oh, my goodness. Brett in overtime. So I know one of the things, Melissa, that you want to talk about has to do with the online component. And those polls are not scientific, but...
Right, because everybody's tweeting at us and they're on Facebook and they're saying you guys are not mentioning the fact that Trump won all the polls afterwards of who they said won. CNN's the only place where people said Hillary Clinton won. I asked Brett about that. There is a reason why we don't refer to a lot of those. They're not scientific. They're snap polls. Tell me what you told me before the show.
Right. Online polls are click polls. You know, they are essentially, how do you feel? And it could have thousands and thousands of people, but, you know, supporters flock there and they are supporters. They're the base. When you have a scientific poll, it's a cross-section, or supposed to be, of the country, and you get a better sense of, you know, a broad look. I'm not discounting that those polls don't show intensity. But if you look at the scientific polls and also the focus groups that are done around the country that have a mix of people, you know, most of them said Clinton won. I don't think the focus groups skewed towards Trump.
Yeah, and a lot of them were on Drudge. A lot of them were, I mean, look, you also visit the site that you think Breitbart, that you think is going to agree with your point of view, right? So if you're visiting Drudge or Breitbart, chances are you're probably a Trump supporter. So it's also very relevant to look at where these polls were taken. Some of them were taken on moderate, middle of the road.
I mean, at Times, CNBC, Slate.
Right. But others were taken on places like Drudge or Breitbart, where I have to say somebody who's a Hillary supporter probably would not.
But it's easy to send your supporters that way. Right. I mean, like they were pointing out in these tweets, they were showing me ones even on these liberal sites, they're winning. And it's the kind of thing, it does show that your people are animated and are out there working for it. It just isn't the same thing as a regular poll, was our point.
I want to go to the live chat where we were cooking with about 9,000 people who have questions. And so if I like your posting, it means that I want to get it in queue to read it. K Motor says, what do you want? To broadcast war strategies to the whole world, including ISIS? Do you want them to be prepared and ready? That makes no sense. With regard, I would imagine this is, to what Donald Trump said to Hillary Clinton last night about the same thing.
I mean, it's a fair point. I think it's
a cop-out. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a fair point for him to deflect, you know, like on points.
Can I interject really quick? Can he answer simple questions? Would you have boots on the ground? Are you for a no-fly zone in Syria? What would you do about Bashar al-Assad? I'm not saying give strategic plans of what we're going to do and our, when our special forces go in, but I'd like some base of what you're going to do when you get into office in 44 days.
Yeah, I think he's talked a little bit about that, but he has not expanded, and he had the opportunity to go into it last night to stop this line of questioning. And he didn't.
You know, I want to ask this on behalf of Melissa Foster, who was on our Facebook Live, because I take comments from there too. Hillary Clinton, she knew beforehand exactly what would be discussed. She was scripted and plain and simple. So my question has to do, kind of piggybacking off of that, you know, we have bias in the media. And we know that many mainstream media people, and I see you kind of turning up the corners of your mouth, you're smart. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We know that particularly young journalists coming into what we do are bringing that liberal mindedness from college, and they're working that, and they haven't quite figured out how to be that fair and balanced yet. That is exact and fair criticism in my mind and in my experience. Does she have a point? Does that also telegraph what will be asked?
But no.
She doesn't know. I mean, they didn't know the questions. They knew those generic topics, and she prepared, I think, for everything. I think once you get to the charges that she was wearing an earpiece or she had all the questions beforehand, that's not provable. And you shouldn't go there because, you know, she spent a lot of time preparing for what she thought would be the questions.
Can she somewhat, just one more second with Brett, somewhat guess that based on what the complaint has been from Donald Trump and others, that there is bias there? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there clearly is, Harris. You're right about that. And it's a concern for Donald Trump. It's an uphill battle in that he's fighting not only Hillary Clinton, but a lot of the press that are running front page stories about how they shouldn't treat Donald Trump the same way. And so it's a factor.
I do want to say two things. One is, the only person that apparently knew these questions in advance was Lester Holt, a registered Republican. So I'm
just saying the tone of them based on what we know.
Maybe, but lest we say that a bunch of 25-year-old New York Times reporters are the ones that came up with these. A registered Republican, Lester Holt, is the only one that came up with these questions. Secondly, look, I know the women who prepared Hillary Clinton for this debate. She and I prepared a lot of candidates together for these debates. I know exactly, I wasn't part of her debate prep, but I know exactly how these debate preps go. And when I say it is a voluminous number of pages that you have to prepare for and read through in topics, and there are different scenarios and there are different drills, and this is literally the most labor-intensive part, I think, of probably any most labor-intensive part of any campaign. Don't get upset because one candidate spent the time when he thought that she was being sick in bed or she was too weak to go out and campaign. You know what she was doing? She was preparing for this debate. Can I ask it
this way?
Yes.
We know from Ben Rhodes that they do, and you heard Donald Trump's camp say game the refs. I'm going to put it differently. We know from Ben Rhodes that when it came to the Iran deal that there were the so-called friendly reporters. Okay. Is it fair to then think that there might be so-called friendly reporter questions in the mix?
Can I call BS on this really quickly? I mean, just to interject, give me a break, Julie, no offense.
It's just a topic.
Martha Raddatz had President Obama at her wedding. Anderson Cooper continually, interjects himself in his own political beliefs when he's interviewing people. Matt Lauer gave money to the Clinton Foundation. So the idea that there's any journalist, and I have been on the campaign trail, and I remember hearing people talk about how much they love Obama and they can't keep their bias to themselves and things like that. The idea that you can trust all journalists and people don't bring their bias in is such a load.
But Lester Holt is a Republican. Do you think he brought a Republican bias last night? He's a registered Republican.
No.
So you're saying he brought a Republican bias? I don't.
He might just not. I mean, the idea that he was a registered Republican, like, I have no idea when was the last time he voted. Some people don't change their registration. Last night, in my opinion, he was a little harder on Donald Trump than he was on Hillary. Why are you bringing up the fact that he's talking about women? I do not believe, it is very difficult for me to believe in this day and era to find a true journalist. And I'm telling you, Martha Raddatz does one thing. The first thing I'm going to tweet is, how was Obama at your wedding?
Melissa Foster hit on a hot point on our Facebook
She did,
Live,
absolutely.
So
I think this had more to do with, though, that he works for NBC, and NBC had just gotten slammed for hitting her on the emails the whole entire time. I don't think it was an accident that he then didn't ask about the emails, because Matt Lauer had just been raked over the coals for those questions. So it was like, well, take emails off my list. Probably smartly. Maybe someone told him that. Who knows? I mean, who knows what really happened? I also, people say she had notes on the.
I'm seeing that on the live chat.
Did she have notes? Are you allowed to have
notes? She's clearly referring to something. She took notes, I think. You know, a lot of times when the candidates come up,
I just didn't know what the rules are.
They write down bullet points.
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is go to the paper. They write down the bullet points.
And that's within the rules,
and then
right?
that's within
you negotiate the rules. First of all, you negotiate the rules from the beginning, right? So just again, he knew what the rules were going in. He was just poorly prepared. You can't blame anybody else for being better prepared.
But let me just say this, that the preparation and the delivery, we don't know for about 5 to 7 days how this debate's going to play in the country.
Interesting.
Now, like I said at the beginning, if we get to the point 5 to 7 days away and everybody is collectively saying she won, but the country says, you know what, I'm tired of the prepared lines, and in the middle part of the country they say, you know what, kick the table over. Let's go.
And her problem wasn't that she was prepared. It was that she seemed inauthentic. I still don't believe, she doesn't feel my pain. Like, she's not there's nothing emotional or real about her.
Yes, he does. Than she does.
And he's,
by the way,
he's angry in the same way that I think a lot of Americans are.
A record number today on our live chat, well above 9,200. And Senator Bulworth, I don't know that he's a real senator, but he watches every day. He says that he just wants to shout that out. So a lot of questions that we won't be able to get to today, but I'm trying to like a lot and get some in here and kind of give the flavor. Sailors USS 6, and this is a long question, so I'll condense it, about organizations and black communities and kind of how the conversation went last night. What were the points that could have been brought up and that got missed, do you think, Brett?
Well, I mentioned Syria, that clearly was not talked about. The Clinton Foundation, I thought the emails could have been followed up on when Donald Trump did raise that about the 5 people who got immunity and then took the 5th in Congress. The investigation into what she said to Congress that turned out to be not true. Any comment about the FBI director saying she was extremely careless. When the cybersecurity question came, I thought that was a huge softball. That he could have said, well, who's secure? You had a server in your basement that was less secure than Gmail.
Wow. I didn't even think of that one.
Oh, yeah.
But that's Donald Trump's job. Nobody else's.
Well, it's been our job to have a great time with Brett Baer.
It was fun.
Thank you. I know it was a long night, and we're glad you're here. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.